Hey V, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Why don't we jump straight in? Just share with people your story, how you got OP, just the whole shebang. Go for it.
Okay, so like growing up, I never did sports, so I never knew what a sports injury was or anything like that. And I got into running first in 2018. Out of the blue, I was just taking photos of the sunset by the beach when a group of runners ran past me. And I remember at that time I was just working a lot and coming home late at night and not having a social life. So when this group of people ran past me, I was like, what is this? Who are you guys? Is this a competition? And they're like, we're a running club. Come and join us. So it was like near my house. It was very convenient for me. I was like, wow, this is a sign that I have a social life now if I join this group. So I joined them and I found it was a very like good respite from work. I would just join them every so often. And I remember I signed up for my first 10K race like early in 2018, and somehow I landed on the podium. So the running group, they were so like, supportive. They were like, "Oh, you have so much talent. Keep running more, keep running more." They were encouraging me. So I think within 6 months or so, I got my half marathon timing down to about 1:38, an hour 38. Then I started having some like right hip issues. This was back in 2018. I didn't know anything much about it. So it was just like the usual rest, strengthen your glutes, etc. And then I kept running more until like 2019. That's when COVID sort of hit. So all the races, went away. But in 2022, I signed up for my first marathon in July. And I remember running that year was going very, very well. And by July, training for the marathon, I had quite a short build because I had some knee discomfort prior to that. So I only trained for about 7 weeks for the marathon, including the taper. And during the last 2 weeks before the marathon, the taper, I felt like my right hip, near my groin area, the adductor, there was this pain and strain in that area. And naturally, my head just went to the worst case scenario. I was like, that is it. I have fractured myself because I never ran anything above a 30 km. So training for the marathon, I did one run, a 30 km run. That was my longest run. A cool down about 2 km. So if we add everything up, maybe 32 kilometers. And then after that, the taper came. I was like, shucks, I think I broke something because it just didn't feel right. And it was a very deep sort of ache, not the superficial sort of a tendon or thing. It was just very, very deep. So I went to see a physio, got massages and shockwave, and I was told it was just tightness of the like deep hip flexors. So because it was the taper, I just didn't run a lot, and I happened to. I mean, I went for the race, which was overseas, and I managed to run a very good timing without any pain. So I clocked a 3:01 for that marathon, the first marathon. And I was like, oh, this is great, the pain didn't come back. But I remember after the marathon, and the marathon was in July. In September, when I got back to running again, I rested for about a month after the marathon. I got back running in September. I just felt like my right hip was stuck. I told my friends my whole body feels ready to race. My left leg is ready to race. My right leg is just not ready. It just it felt okay. I don't know if anyone has experienced this, but it felt locked. It felt jammed. Like I wish someone, when you have like a knuckle that is tight, you
Yeah,
just crack it.
yeah.
I just wish someone could crack it. So, but it just like lingered. But slowly, gradually building up mileage, it went away. So then, end of the year, this was December 2022. I signed up for. I'm from Singapore, so I signed up for the Singapore Marathon. It was like a hot and humid race in the tropical country that I'm from. So training for it again, this time things were going much better. I did, I think, one or two runs that were about 30 kilometers and above. Um, and there were no hiccups. I was waiting for a hiccup to happen because I've had lots of hiccups along my running career. Um, and it didn't. I was like, wow, I was really pleased. But then 2 weeks before the marathon, during the taper, again, I felt the right hip. So I was like, oh dang, why is it back? But this time, because I had experience before, I knew that it could go away. I knew that it was most likely not a fracture. So I was a bit more steady, and I had the same team that helped me through the previous incident. So I just got the whole team back on board, did the usual, shockwave, massage, and then I prayed a lot about it, and yeah, it went away, and I ran that Singapore race, and I came in like the first female Singaporean, which exceeded my expectations also. And I ran it pain-free. So again, I took December off after the marathon and got back to training in January of 2023, which is last year. And this time I was feeling a little bit more ambitious because I think I've done two marathons. I'm no longer new at this thing. I wanted to try some speed because throughout my whole running since 2018, I've actually never done hill work. I've never really stepped on a track, maybe just less than 5 sessions on a track. So I've never done track work. I've never done hill work. I was quite undertrained actually. So I thought, okay, now that I've done two marathons, maybe I can push my body a little bit more. So I added in a bit more speed and I was improving very, very fast. Like the timings were things I've never hit before. Until one day when I was doing a speed workout on the roads, I remember during the run, I felt my right hip ache again, but this time it felt worse. And I remember I have a training log, so like a little diary of sorts. I wrote in my diary, I think I broke my hip. Bad. So I think I broke my hip. And then, so just took the next few days quite easy. It sort of like lingered there, but didn't get worse. I could still run, like 7K, 10K, but the moment it would hit around 10 kilometers, that ache would come back. And how I would describe it is like it's at the groin area, but more so at the adductors at first, the right adductors. And then soon it became like lower abdominal, which is so odd. Like, why is my abs hurting? And yeah, but once I stop running, usually it tends to go away. So this was in late January all the way to February. So in Singapore, we have this, in Southeast Asia, we have this thing called like the Southeast Asian Games where you can represent your country. So then somewhere mid in, I think February, someone, actually not someone, quite a few people started messaging me and saying, hey Vanessa, I think you're gonna qualify to represent Singapore in the SEA Games because I think you're ranked number two. So I was like, oh, how did I rank number two? Because I only did that one marathon in July, and apparently that placed me in number two. I was like, oh my goodness. So then with this pain, and I couldn't get past the pain. I panicked. Went to see a doctor, got an MRI a few days later. And the day that the MRI results came out was when everybody congratulated me. It's like, I think you're going, I think you're going. I was like, oh my God, because the report actually, I went for the MRI and collected the report a few hours later. I remember that evening, my whole world just felt so dark because there was this okay, they found some stuff, here, there, and everything. But the main thing that just crushed my heart was the word fracture. I was like, a fracture. Okay, so to put it in context, in 2019 of July, I was wrongly diagnosed with a foot fracture before.
Mhm.
Okay, so I took, because that was my first real major injury, I took 3 months off very worried on the left foot. I got back running in 2019 and I had the same pain at the right foot. So I told myself I can't have fractured both feet without running for 3 months. So I ordered an x-ray for myself on both feet and it turns out I was born with a bipartite sesamoid, meaning my sesamoid bone is already in two parts. There was no fracture. So I've been wrongly diagnosed by medical people before. So when this one said fracture, I was also a little bit like, is this really this? Like, do I believe this? Because I've been wrongly diagnosed in a scan before, and I took 6 months off for that big fracture. So I had a sports doctor, and I saw him the very next day. He did some tests here and there. So the only test that was positive was the adductor squeeze test, which I'm sure a lot of people with OP would have done this test, and it hurts like crazy.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
worst.
And then and then he was like, he also heard that I may be representing Singapore and things like that. So he was like, you know what, just I don't think this fracture, because it says like near the pubic symphysis, and he was like, I think it's an incidental finding. I don't think there's a fracture. He told me you can continue running on it. I was like, are you sure? Because I'm actually a very, very cautious person. So I was like, I think I won't run on it. Let me just rest for a week at least. All right. So I rested for a week, and a week later, the results for who's going to represent Singapore came out. And I think like for the first time in I don't know if it's history, but well, at least the last few years, there's always two people, but this time they only selected one person, and I was number two, so obviously I didn't get selected. And everyone was like messaging me, "Oh, I'm so sorry you didn't get in," but I was so relieved. I was like, okay, I was like, thank God, okay. So yeah, I was like, okay, you know what? So I told the doctor, since I'm not chosen, let's just respect this injury and just treat it as a fracture, just in case. So how long do I have to take time off? So he told me 6 weeks. I was like, okay, 6 weeks, I can do it. It's fine. All right, I'll be patient. So 6 weeks of agonizing, not running, because when you have something your whole life and it gets taken away, the acute onset of it being taken away is the hardest part. So it
It's
was hard.
grief.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like from running so much to nothing at all. And like your social circle is removed because you tend to run with people. Your outlet after every day after work is removed, and for me running, the whole reason I got to running is because I love running by the beach, by the seaside at sunset. So I stopped seeing the sunset for months. Okay, but we'll get to that later. So anyway, I remember then I fell sick 4 weeks into the 6 weeks rest. And because I fell sick, like really deathly sick, like fever, everything, I couldn't cross train. So I rested. And during that rest, where I didn't do anything, because before that I tried a little bit of cycling, elliptical to get things moving. During that rest where I had to like just lie in bed for a week, suddenly the pain became from running only in the past to pain even at rest. Okay? So obviously we didn't know what we were dealing with at that time, but I was like, fractures don't really behave this way. Fractures tend to be more painful when you exert it, not at rest. So I finished the 6 weeks of imprisonment, but I gave myself an extra 7 weeks because I'm so careful. And then the doctor told me, yeah, get back to running. Because I told him, now I have the pain even on walking. And he was like, yeah, I told you there's no fracture, right? You wanted to rest. So he was like, yeah, there's no fracture. So you need to get back to things. So I got back running. And I I thought, sometimes it takes a while for your body to get over the pain. So I slowly ramped up for another 6 weeks. And I clearly remember at the end of my slow ramp up of 6 weeks, I did a 12-kilometer run. And at the end of that 12-kilometer run, the pain felt as bad as it did 6 weeks ago. And I had to stop. And it just felt so bad. So then I went back to the doctor. And during that time, I think I was undergoing a lot of stress that I actually also had like intermenstrual bleeding. Because the reason when I never believed I had a fracture is because I never missed a period. So sometimes for females, if you're like underweight, you miss a period, you're underfueled, you tend to get fractures. But I never had any of those. My period was so regular. Um, so when I was going through all that, I think I was so stressed that in between my periods, I had like bleeding. So then I was sent to a gynae because they were saying there's no fracture, right? Because you're still having pain now. So it's like maybe it's a gynecological issue.
Yeah.
So go see a gynae, like scans, and like things propped up everywhere. It was so uncomfortable.
Give me one
And
second.
yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So yeah, I went through so many series of tests, running from hospital to hospital, and I'm still working a full-time job. And thankfully, I mean, I prayed really hard about it. So the gynae part, it was fine. Yeah, I was cleared of that. So I went to see a second opinion, a second doctor. So by now, 12 weeks have passed. Okay, more than 12 weeks, like 13 weeks have passed. Then the second doctor was like, oh, this is, he saw the scan, was like, this is a fracture. You can't just take 6 weeks. A fracture takes at least 12 weeks to heal. So in my mind, I was thinking, if I had just taken the full 12 weeks, I'll be back running by now, right? Because 12 weeks have passed. But now he told me I have to repeat everything all over again and start from ground zero. So my heart just broke. It just broke so hard that I cried a little about it. But life goes on. Showed up at work, and mind you, when I was told I had this fracture the whole time, I never missed a day of work. No one at work knew. I just hobbled around in pain because I told myself as long as I can walk, I will show up to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the second doctor said 12 weeks, and I bumped into the first doctor at work the next day. And he actually got really upset with me for seeing a second opinion. And then he actually shouted at me in front of the physio and said, you see, I told you, right? Your problem is that you keep wanting to run and you refuse to not run. I was like, that's contrary advice to what you told me at the start.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't he say after 6 weeks, like go run? That like, yeah,
In fact, he told me to run the day after the scan. I was
yeah.
the one who said so. Yeah, I mean, I share this because, I mean, after joining you, I know there are lots of people on the Facebook group who go through this where the medical team like doesn't understand or they get wrongly diagnosed, and it's such a roundabout. So I did another 12 weeks of no running. So essentially another 3 months. So by then 6+ months have passed. I got two MRI scans during that 6 months, but the plan was to repeat another MRI at the third month. So the two MRIs that I did in between, they all lighted up, like the near the pubic symphysis, it lighted up. So this, by the time it was, I think August already, and actually to be honest, like I link a lot of my running to my faith because I just feel it was a gift from God. And every time I run, I feel very connected spiritually. And yeah, I'm so thankful that God gave me this ability to enjoy something so much, be good at it, and truly have a passion for it. And when it was all taken away, I kept telling myself, it's okay, God has his reasons, he has his plans, I need to be changed in so many ways to improve myself. Like probably he doesn't want me to love running this much. I probably made it what we call an idol, where you just, want something so much in life that it may even surpass the one for your faith. So I was like, okay, if God wants me to learn all this, I will learn it. But by the time I hit August, before my third MRI scan, I remember I went to church that day. I was like, you know what, God, I've never asked you for healing, but today I really, really have to ask you for healing. I, your plan is great, but I can't take it anymore. I was like, okay, God, just please heal me. I've been so patient, you know. I've worked this whole time, never complained, and I've just been so patient. Like I'm single, so I go through all this alone. Like I do all the cross training. Some people who have their partners, they were like cross train the partners, and then the partner will be like, supporting them, so proud of you. But there was no one who is hyping me up for all this. I just cross train alone. I just tell myself, yeah, it's okay. So by the time it was August, like God, please heal me. So I remember in August, I was working. I took a short break in between my meetings to go for the MRI scan, and I bumped into a colleague. I actually worked in a hospital. So I bumped into a colleague. He was my medical school classmate. So he was like, hey, what are you doing here? I was like, I fractured myself. So he was like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. He was like, I'm reading the scans today. And I'm like, oh, really great. Can you just help me see it? Immediately after I had my MRI scan, I felt so fortunate to be able to go and see the scan myself with my classmate. But the moment he opened it, I knew where to look for. It was lighting up
Oh.
again. I like almost cried in front of him. I cannot explain to you how traumatic it is to have three scans and all three are like lighting up abnormal. I can only feel for my patients because I treat cancer patients. I give chemotherapy. Now I like understand how painful it must be every time I tell them there's a bad scan result after they've endured rounds of chemotherapy. So I know mine is not in that life or death sort of situation, but it was hard enough to feel pain. So I like teared up a little bit, and then he was telling me, yeah, fractures sometimes take longer. I was like, I rested more than it's August, I had this in January. He was like, yeah, maybe you just need a year more. I was like, okay. So then I teared a little bit, wiped my tears, went back to meeting, acted like everything's cool. And yeah, so just rested a bit more. But the second opinion doctor told me once I've completed 3 months, he feels I should get back running because MRI findings sometimes can lag behind actual healing. Things like get back to things. But this time I was very cautious. So instead of getting back running on the roads, I got help with something called like those anti-gravity
Yeah, it's
tread.
Tokyo Zero G. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Alter G, but
Alter
mine was
G,
a bit
that's the one.
different. Yeah, there was like something that will hoist you up with a harness and things like that. So I did that three times, 2 or 3 times a week. Very little. It was the usual 1 minute run, 1 minute walk. I just listen to my podcast and just like and you do that for like 5 minutes and that's it. I was like, okay, I'll just do that, and then it was fine. It was pretty good. Um, and I was very hopeful. So I did that for about 6 weeks because I'm so slow and so
Yeah.
careful. And then we got back running on the roads, and no, the pain came back.
Oh.
So by this time it was like October. Um, then the second doctor didn't know what was going on. The first doctor was like, um, I had to see the first doctor because I needed him to approve my scans. It's just the way funding works for the scans. So he told me straight in my face, pointed his finger at me and said, you know what? that is it, Vanessa. You can't run forever. You have to change sports. That is it.
Oh.
He told me that straight in my face. And one day when he saw me in the corridor and he caught me off, I was like eating a waffle. Happily eating a waffle, and then he told me that I like lost my appetite. I was like, no, I don't want to eat. I just didn't want to eat the waffle anymore. I was like, yeah, he just told me that in the middle of the corridor at work. I was like, okay. And I think he felt bad because he called me like a minute later, I mean like 5 minutes later, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna refer you to a surgeon. Because you need a bone graft for a non-union fracture. This basically what you have is a non-union fracture.
What
And
is
then
what is a non-union fracture? What does that mean?
yeah, so how fractures heal in 6 weeks to 12 weeks. You can get a malunion fracture where it heals wrongly, or you can get a non-union fracture where it refuses to gel together, it refuses to heal.
Oh, okay.
So that's a non-union fracture. So then I was like, okay, this sounds terrible. So I went to Google, and apparently like only 1% of the population gets non-union fractures. And by this time my faith was like,
I
you know,
was
I was
gonna
like,
say,
yes,
I was like,
I cannot believe of all people you would give me the 1% of a non-union fracture. Haven't I been good enough? Like, so yeah, so it was like I was struggling both in sport, in life, in work, in my mental health and my faith. So anyway, I went to see the surgeon. And during this time, by the way, I got into the gym myself. I never did gym work before, like no heavy lifting in my life. But because I like took almost the whole year off, I was really bored. I went to a gym, and a personal trainer did teach me some of the initial things, how to use the equipment. Then I would do everything on my own. So I went to see the surgeon, and he asked me what I've been doing. So I said, okay, I've been doing some cycling, doing some elliptical, but I've also been carrying heavy weights. And in fact, I got pretty strong that I could like deadlift 80 kg. And he was like, oh, that's why you're not healing. He was like, you need to stop all that. Stop elliptical, stop cycling, stop the gym, stop everything. I was like, huh? Then what do I do? Then he was like, nothing, just don't do anything. Then he was like, I was like, can I walk? He was like, only for work. So yeah, I didn't get any medical leave for the non-union fracture. I think some people would have just taken the leave, but yeah, I was told only walk for work. So continued working very hard, because I could only walk for work. And yeah, my world just became so dark because before that, the past few years, I was always running. After, I had a hard day of work, and then I'll tell myself, it's okay, Vanessa, because after work, you're gonna escape by the seaside. But for that whole year, I was stuck indoors. I'm not an indoor person. I love being outside. Just to listen to my podcast, listen to some songs, and just run by the sea. That gives me so much comfort. It's not even about races. Just didn't have that. I didn't see my friends for a very long time, but my true friends walked with me during the period. We'll walk. Yeah, and we'll just chat and rant. So yeah, so I stopped all that, all those activities. Um yeah, and okay, like story for another time, but my faith just went boom. Like then one day in October, I woke up, I couldn't walk.
Oh.
In October, I can't remember one day I woke up and I just couldn't walk. It was so painful. The pain was so sharp that I couldn't even lift my leg a bit or adjust my position in the bed. And then I was like, initially I did doubt about the fracture, but after I couldn't walk like that, I was like, yeah, that's it. I have a fracture. A fracture for sure. And because I have been still walking around, I thought maybe that's why the fracture is not healing. I mean, I'm a doctor, but I'm not a sports doctor. I don't, I treat cancer patients. I don't know anything about this. So then um, I was scheduled to actually see a sports. I actually made an appointment. So by then I'd seen four doctors, right? Like three sports, but one gynae. So a fifth doctor's appointment. I actually made this appointment a month ago. I just because someone told me don't stop, just try. Like since you're not getting the answers or the help, just try. Don't stop trying. So I made that appointment that week on October and Thursday. And Monday I couldn't walk. I was like, oh thank God I had that appointment. So then I went for the appointment, and actually a lot of pivotal things happened in my faith. Like a big part of it was actually just surrendering. So I actually on Monday I was so low and so despondent. I actually prayed, and I actually told God, you know what? I just surrender this whole thing to you, and I just, yeah, if it's running is not what you want me to do, I just give it all up to you, you know. Then on Thursday, I met this fifth doctor, and he listened to me rant like how I'm ranting, and looked at the scan, and like 40 minutes after that, he was like, Vanessa, isn't it so obvious what you have? It's like, what? What? It's like, there's no fracture. I was like, huh? No fracture? It's like, this is osteitis pubis. Yeah, so I actually came to his office in a wheelchair. He must be thinking I'm very dramatic because I was so scared to walk. You see, we had brought crutches. I was like crutching around at home, and I told you I didn't take any medical leave, but that 2 days I had to take leave because I just couldn't walk anymore. So told me it's osteitis pubis, and his recommendation is improve my core. So he says, you need to improve your core. I was like, oh, okay. So he got me to do the like straight leg, and then you slowly lift your leg down, but you
Yeah.
cannot bend your back.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do. And he was like, see, so your back is arching so much, that's why you're OP. I was like, gosh. He was like, so you don't run for another 3 months, I'll see you in 3 months' time. And by then your back must be flat. If it can't be flat, you can't get back to running. That's what he told me. I was like, okay, okay, I'll just listen to that. And then um yeah, prayed a little more, and I actually immediately went home as someone who's so like academic. I put the hashtag Osteitis Pubis and went on social media, and I went to like search everyone who tagged Osteitis Pubis, and I messaged almost everybody. Yeah, so that's how I found you, by the way, because some of your clients who have gone through OP have put a hashtag Osteitis Pubis. So I actually it was on Instagram, it was on Facebook and everything. So I just messaged a whole bunch of people and asked them how they got back to it. Because when I saw they had it and then they got back to running, it gave me so much hope. But I wanted to know how.
Mm.
So a lot of them said, yeah, core balance and everything. Not everyone went through your program. Some didn't and still got back running. But um, a lot of people were like, oh, you need to go for the OP clinic. So Thursday got the diagnosis, Friday got the reply about OP clinic, and I think like God's timing. Usually you are very full, but I got an appointment with you that Sunday. Yeah. So I mean to me I just felt it was like divine timing. Like, everything happened so fast after I said I surrender running to God. Everything happened so fast. Got the right diagnosis, met the right doctor, and I found you. So, to be honest, like, seeing someone virtually, it's always a little bit like, how are you gonna cure me? I had no idea, but I watched all these like testimonials that other people have given, and everyone is saying that they tried this, they tried. So I was also offered like in the past when we thought I had a fracture, I actually did go for like shockwave at my pubic area for the so-called fracture. It's painful, and honestly, it's just humiliating to bear yourself, completely bare and get a
Yeah.
shockwave, not get better. Yeah, so after that, people told me about PRP and all those things, but the doctor that I saw who diagnosed me with OP didn't offer any of that. He just said you just need to strengthen your core, and PRP, all that, you may just cause more problems. So in a way, I'm glad he told me that also. So it was by then, it was already October. I had nothing to lose by going for your program. And so yeah, that's that's the journey.
Now I'm going to ask you a bunch of stuff about when we start, but let me just reflect back on a bunch of stuff on that stuff. So first of all, like anyone watching this, like one of the first thing you want to think is like obviously V, incredibly intelligent, a doctor, knows what she's doing. It's such a minefield to go through that. So a lot of things that I hear from people is just like, oh, I was so stupid. I should have found you earlier. I should have done something different earlier. And it's like, I'm like, if the doctors can't like figure it out, like that's not anyone's fault. Then like it's so hard. It's such a minefield and stuff. And even like, that fracture you had on your foot and stuff like that, like it's like that confidence, like anyone else is watching that confidence to be like, oh, hey, no, I can't get a fracture in my other foot. And to just be like, no, this must be wrong, right? Like that's hard to do. If you're not a doctor, it's hard to like have the confidence to say stuff like that. So anyone who's watching this and stuff, like it's hard for the best of us, and let alone if you're not in the ideal situation and your life life is crazy and you don't have time and you don't have colleagues who are also doctors that you can talk about things with and stuff. And even if you are in that situation, like V was, you still can go through this incredible journey of not getting the answers that you need, sort of things and stuff like that. So anyone in this situation, you just want to understand. And that other thing that your friend said to you as well, like it doesn't matter if you see me or you see other people. If you don't stop, eventually you get the help you need. If you just don't stop and you just keep thing with it, like eventually you get the help you need. The other thing I wanted to reflect upon as well is you're describing it as your faith, right? And it's different for everyone. But running, sport, being physically active is an important part of the human experience. It connects you to the world. It connects you. Like we were designed to do these things. Like so, for me, I'm not religious. But I'm very much. I don't know. I believe in evolution, I guess, is probably like my release. Like, I think we are designed to do certain things. And if we don't do those things, it makes us deeply unhappy because that was our initial design, if that makes sense, right?
Mm,
Sort of thing.
mm,
So, running or hiking or soccer or whatever it is an intrinsic part of who you are. And it makes it important. And sometimes, and I don't know why they don't seem to do this to men. Like, I only hear these stories. And this is part of why I love doing this, is because I get to hear, like, I didn't know any of that stuff.
mm.
You told me, right? But it just seems to be this thing where doctors seem to be comfortable telling people, oh, stop doing that thing. That thing that you love, that is so important to you, that is a fundamental part of who you are and how you experience the world. Stop doing it. And don't get me wrong, like you have to modify, you have to change things sometimes. You have to stop running for a while. Sometimes you have to do it. But like that idea that you should just stop giving up, you should just give up on the thing that you love
Yeah,
is a horrible thing to tell anyone, especially if
yeah,
you're in a position of power telling it to someone. And even you're,
yeah,
again, like you're a doctor. So
yeah,
yes, obviously that doctor knows more than you about medicine, about not medicine, about sports injuries.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? But still, like you're on much more equal footing than say a normal person going to that doctor. And it's just that anyone who's watching this, who if you've had someone tell you stop doing this or don't do that or like or even just like degrade you, like I've just had a lot of clients telling me being like you're a mum now, like you're what's the word for it, you're like compromising your health, you're risking your health, you're a mum now, you're being stupid for doing this, do you know what I mean, just so that you can run or just so you can play this
mm,
stuff like that. And it's just to kind of say is that look, that sometimes, the truth is the truth. Like you need to stop doing things, you need to break
yeah,
a break, something like that. But no one has the right to take away your hope, your dream, the thing that connects you to the universe, or to God, or to whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that is your thing. And yeah, and as long as you are honest about the situation and you're willing to put the work in, you can have it. And maybe it won't be like, maybe you're whoever, I'm talking to the pejorative people here in the world, but maybe like, your pelvis is so injured that you can't run the way that you used to. That doesn't mean you can't run at all. There's always wiggle room. There's always things. And that's the worst case scenario. But yeah, you are not the first person to describe this. I've never had a male client have a doctor turn
okay.
around. And I don't know, like obviously that's by a sample size maybe, but I've never had a male client come to me and be like, yeah, the doctor told me to stop running, to change sports. That's just never a thing that's ever come across.
Mm,
And yeah, that's just not something like there was one other thing that I wanted to reflect upon. Oh, okay. Then just really quickly. So you're hearing V describe this process where she's going through this thing of just feeling like your hip is stuck, right?
uh-huh,
Like this multiple year process of where it just like feels like it's stuck, right? So what you just want to understand, and again, I wasn't there. I couldn't test you in the moment. You know what I mean?
yeah,
2018 was a long time ago, sort of things. I saw you in 2024, 2024.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, 2023, last year.
2023. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I saw you in 2023, right? It's 2025 right now.
Oh yeah,
Might be
last year.
watching this, anyone who's watching this in the future kind of things. But yeah, so like what happens when you're trying to use your body or you're trying to do something is your body has a pattern. So say if you're playing a video game and really intensely and it only involves using two buttons, like eventually your thumb starts cramping, right? It's a very common thing. So what happens with your body when you're running is you're activating these patterns. And if things are going well, and this is a very broad explanation, not a very specific one, but if things are activating well and you're moving well, right? Like things get to turn on and off. So you switch something on and then you switches off and it switches on again and switches off as your legs swing when you're running and stuff like that, right? So what can happen though when you have something like OP is essentially just imagine your pelvis is unstable. So what your body needs to do is it needs to start bracing and tightening the pelvis to stabilize it and hold it in place. So then as you're running, yes, you have muscles that'll pull your leg up and pull your leg behind you, but you have this constant source of tension that's trying to hold your pelvis together, because that's why people get OP. Their pelvis is unstable. So it never gets a chance to rest. So it's just cramping, cramping, cramping. So what you were probably experiencing, and what she was probably experiencing to some degree, was just those muscles getting to a point where they were just fatiguing so much that there was spasming. But when you have stabilizers, they're not stabilizing muscles are different to if you get a spasm in your bicep, you get a spasm in your lower back, you feel it. It hurts. It's horrible. When you get stabilizing muscle spasms, they're very small, very little muscles. They don't feel like that. They don't cramp the same way. They don't give you that excruciating pain, but you know there's something wrong. That's why you I'm guessing, kept feeling like I have a fracture. I have something that's really deep. It's really kind of
Yeah.
things, right? Because it feels very different to every other injury that you have. And so that feeling, that if anyone who's watching this, that feeling you get where there's just something wrong in your pelvis, one, don't try to overanalyze it. Like you're just never going, your brain is not well connected to that area of your body. It's very deep. And in all honesty, you weren't ever supposed to know how to control that area. Your pelvis, your core is supposed to just work. You're not supposed to learn how to use your core. It's because we sit down all the time. It's because we live in a modern society, blah, 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 a million reasons, but you lose that connection sort of thing. So that feeling, one, don't try to connect it. Don't try to figure out what it is. It's too deep. It's too weird. It's two things. Just understand that feeling is, trust your gut. Something's not right. I don't feel stable. Something's not right. And then the purpose of your recovery is to try to replace that feeling with a sense of, oh, when I do this thing with my arch, when I do this thing with my glute, I am stable now. I feel stable. I feel secure. And then if you operate, anyone who's watching this, when you operate from that perspective, then it's very much this case of oh, I don't need to figure out exactly what this problem is, exactly what this, I encourage people to stop thinking about your issue like OP, like this one diagnosis, and just think of it more as I want to run and I can't run. And I need to do work to get to the point where I can run. And yeah, so anyone who's watching this, it's really common to get that kind of dispersing feeling where you don't know exactly what's wrong. Something feels off. You can't explain it. So you feel like you just can't explain it to the doctor properly. So then they can't tell you what you have. And just understand that you're never going to be able to explain it well enough and stuff like that. And that you should just not worry about what it feels like and just worry about focusing on what you need to do to make that feel better, sort of things. Okay. Now let's switch over. So it must have been, so you were told, don't lift weights, don't do anything, they're making a fracture. What was it like when, and I quite like that doctor who was literally, you remember, was telling you to keep your back flat. That's one of the exercises that I make you do from the very beginning,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
things, is through
Yeah.
that. What was it like when I then come along, don't really know much, you gave me a brief history, but I didn't have that kind of
Yeah.
detail and stuff like that and didn't
Yeah.
know that. What was it like when I came on? I was like, V, lift weights, lift them heavier. No, the weights are going to help you heal. They'll encourage bone growth. They'll encourage things. What was that like to hear versus months and years of the opposite kind of thing?
Yeah. So, even I met you, even before I had an OP diagnosis, I told you I already started going to the gym, right? And I
Yeah.
noticed every time I carried weight, I felt reset,
Yeah.
which made me feel like, how can it be that I was joking with my friends. I think I'm the strongest or the most functional person with a fracture. Have you seen a fractured person carry like 80 kgs, like deadlift? But it made me feel better, you see. So when you told me to do all those things, I mean, I just saw it as um, firstly, for anyone who doesn't know, there's a whole spreadsheet of exercises. So it was quite overwhelming at the start. Even for someone who's very medical and very academic, I must say it was quite overwhelming. And I think it's also because I'm someone who's very meticulous. Everything that I watch, I need to watch it properly. I won't fast forward. I would really watch it. So it took quite a bit of time, but this was towards the end of 2023 where I was already planning to take annual leave to rest in preparation for like a holiday or actually for the marathon that I was wanted to take part in, but which I couldn't. So I planned to take leave. So my work was a little bit more quiet then, which turned out to be a blessing because I invested all that time into this program. And I think you can attest to how I really did my homework. And yeah, but I had no reservations about lifting the weights. I just wanted to do them right. That was about it. Yeah. And I liked being able to do something because before I met you, the few weeks leading up to it, I was told to stop doing everything. And for someone who loves sweating or like working out, to stop doing everything is really runners don't like to cross train. runners don't like to elliptical and to cycle. But after I got OP, I was so thankful that I can at least do the elliptical and cycle. And suddenly when that is also taken away, I felt like this is terrible. Okay, to put in perspective, I really felt imprisoned. I really, really felt imprisoned. I couldn't come out of that prison. I was just describing to my friend that way. Like, why am I stuck in this prison that I can't come out of? I can't come out of it. Yeah, yeah, it was terrible. So many horrific memories coming back. Yeah, so
Yeah.
did all the exercises and I wasn't expecting anything much because I told you I just told myself, for me, I just thought, okay, God has called me to do this time. Like in the past, how I'll be faithful is I'll be faithful by doing my work, doing my, enjoying my runs. Now He's called me to do rehab, so I'll just do it faithfully. So I just do, God, you've given me this assignment, I will do it faithfully. So I just do the assignment every day and submit all the homework. Whether or not I get back to running, I was not very hopeful because I've heard stories of how it takes months for people to come back. Um, you have a Facebook group and of all that, of people with OP, and it was very interesting to hear people share their stories. But more so, there are a few Olympians who have had it, top runners in like the US and all that. So as usual, very academic. So I deep dove into all their history. And usually all of them cannot get back to sport within the first year of OP, not at to the same level. So I was already prepared for that. So we stopped all the walking and everything, but by November, he told me to go out walking. And so basically, I had to relearn how to walk again, right? I had to learn how to like land my feet. So I just practiced like that every day, at home. And when I could walk again, I had to video myself walking. So it was very humbling to go from someone who ran a 3:01 marathon to like learning to walk again. I have to show you how I walk. Yeah. But it was nice because I'm like, wow, I can go outside and see the sunset. So very happy. Did my little walk. Then in fact I felt quite tired from walking. I was like, wow, I'm so weak now. So then walked back home and then things progressed quite nicely. We had a few setbacks which my SI joined. There was a pain on my birthday week, I remember in November. So it just re-emphasized the point that it was pelvic instability, be it in front or behind. So I was quite happy it went to the back. I was telling you, it shows I've been so good at correcting the pain in the putting the pressure in front, I put it to the back. But you were like, no, no, it's just so yeah, but I was very happy that OP didn't flare. In fact, my back was painful, but the back pain was really no joke. It was very, very painful. But one day in December, you told me, okay, go out for a run. I was like, run? I was like, I've only been 2 months in with this program, I can run. And actually, the doctor that I saw, he told me 3 months, right, at least. So I was disobeying him basically, which he still doesn't know. Yeah, then we got back running by December.
Now, let me just jump in there really quickly. So just coming to reflect back then on, right? So like V's like, you got these people telling us stuff, sort of things as well, but something internally inside you made you go, I want to go to the gym. Something in your gut said like, this is going to be good for you. And then you started weightlifting, right? Like before you started the program, all that stuff, you're weightlifting by yourself and you could feel that it was good for you. And I think it highlights this thing where there's like you can't just trust your body, right? You need doctors. They have to be medical professionals around you, right? But on the flip side of it, like there are just intrinsic things that you as a patient, as a person who is inside your body knows that I being outside your body will never know kind of things, right? And anyone who's watching this, like you want to understand is that you want to Google things, you want to learn things, you want to read, you want to do things, but you always want to try to take what you learn and then try to make it explain what you're experiencing. And that at the end of the day, what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, that is the important information sort of things. And you're trying to take all that stuff. So your gut told you go to the gym and then you went to the gym and it kind of like, and it felt right sort of things, right? And then things, and yeah, did it fix your problem? No. Did you still show a scan and lit up? But it was the right direction, right? And it's that idea that just like when you trust yourself, and again, I'm sure like, you went to the gym and yes, you got to 80 kilos in a deadlift, but I'm sure you did it methodically. I'm sure you didn't just go from 0 to 80 kilos. I'm sure you were very calm and careful about it. I'm sure you followed like, instructions and stuff like that and made sure your technique was good and all that stuff, right? But it's like, oh, when you, I just feel like that's the most important part of healing is this thing of kind of going, hey, we can't, like, even when people come to me, it's like, yes, I've got a spreadsheet, I've got this plan and stuff like that. But even then, like, I am completely open to the idea that I might have to change the plan completely and stuff. And the thing that I'm always looking for from people when I'm treating them is to go, what are you feeling? How is this feeling? What is your gut telling me? What are you like things? Are you scared? Are you anxious when you're doing that exercise? What's going on and stuff like that? And it's just kind of going, getting to a point where it's like, if I can get someone to go, hey, do you know what you're trying to do now? Like, do you know what you're achieving? Well, okay, here's the exercise, but go and do that thing. You need to be able to lift this weight. You need to be able to feel this muscle activate. You need to be able to feel this foot connection on the ground when you're running and stuff. So it's like, oh, if you're in the gym and you're doing that and you feel safe, then you're moving in the right direction. I can't be 100% sure exactly what you're actually doing to get better. Because yeah, I can give you the exercise and stuff, but there's so many variables that are out of control. But if you feel like you're moving in the right direction, like physically, if you emotionally and mentally think that what you're doing makes sense, then in some way it's going to work itself out if you keep moving in that direction, sort of things. And so it's like, oh, you go to the gym, right? And yeah, sure. Like obviously, if you were doing the right exercises, you probably would have gotten better by just going to the gym, right? You didn't. But by going to the gym and doing that stuff, when we got together and we started doing stuff, you would have been so much easier. You'd already deadlifted 80 kilos. It would have been so easy, so much easier for me to when I go to you, hey, okay, V, can you send me like your technique looks great. Send me 30 kilos. You know, like sometimes people see it and they're like, I can't lift 30 kilos. Do you know what I mean? Like that's too heavy. And then I'll be like, just go up slowly, build up slowly. But like things like all that stuff pushed you in the right direction. And anyone who's watching this, it's just like listen to your gut. Don't be stupid, but listen to your gut, move in that direction, and then just adjust. And then just adjust. And, you know, say you went to the gym. I'm sure there were things that you did that didn't feel good on your pelvis or didn't feel good, and you just avoided them and you didn't do it right.
Yeah.
But that act of just being like, I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to try things and I'm going to take control of this situation to whatever degree you can, kind of things. It only ever leads to good things. It only ever leads to people getting better and stuff like that. And yeah, and I don't know if you noticed, but like every step of the way, I was always pushing you and pushing you hard, but then always being like, what do you feel? Does that make you anxious? Does that make you stressed and stuff like that? So that eventually it was more like, oh, hey, tell me what you felt. Tell me what happened. Okay, cool. Let's figure out what we're doing based on what you told me now. Kind of things. Let's figure out, oh, let's not do that because that doesn't seem to agree with you and stuff like that. And yeah, and instead of it being like, oh, I'm going to come and tell you, like, no, you should stop running. That's why you're injured and stuff like that. It's just like, no. Let's figure out what your body's telling us and let's kind of find the place where you're on the right path to get better. Does that kind of make sense? Because yeah, like to me, that like you started getting better the second you started going to the gym, kind of things. And then whether it's God or whatever, like the stuff came into your life to let you get you there, but you'd already kind of started that thing. Okay, let's finish this up then. If you were going to give anyone advice or just anything about like, you know, who's in your situation and stuff, what would you want to tell them? What would you want them to kind of imbibe off you to try to like on their journey kind of thing?
So, I mean, I think OP is a bit tricky, but it's not something that you have to live with forever. I mean, hopefully not. But it can come back. So I've had flares since after you've discharged me, and I tend to notice the flares would come about when I have to rest. So, for instance, when I got COVID again, and I had to rest in bed for that week, it flared up. So it can come back, and sometimes it just catches you out of the blue. I had an episode this year once, I mean, not this year, like 2024, once where it flared up really badly. I was in severe pain and I felt very despondent. I just felt all the months of hard work went away. I felt I had to repeat the whole program with you again. And that's when I reached out to you. But I just, yeah, like, I think a lot of it is perspective. Instead of thinking like, it's all wasted, I just, for me, my faith was a very big anchor. So I just told myself, God still wants me to learn some new things. So however long He wants me to change me and learn, and for me to learn, that will be however long it takes. And it's okay how long it took. So I just like rested. I just basically just rested for a bit first, and then resumed the rehab again after that flare. And yeah, it didn't last that long. Like within a week or so, it calmed down. So now I think after going through, of course, you don't want it to come back. But when you get a flare and if you can get through it, you have more confidence that if it comes back, you have more confidence that, hey, there are techniques, there are things you can do. And even if it's painful, it's okay, just rest. So yeah, that'll be one advice, which is just don't panic too much. And the other thing is the time that you are away from the sport that you love, whatever it is, make good use of that time. So I would say that I really feel that I used that time very well. Yeah, it was not in sports. It was actually I actually befriended a lady with cancer who had spread to her brain, and she couldn't walk the same time that I couldn't walk. She was from a Bible study group. And because I was taken away from sport for so long, I managed to journey through with her during her last few months of her life, and she has since passed away. So I got to visit her like every week or every other week in at home, and then in the hospital, and then in the hospice. And I got to, connect with her husband and her helper and everything. So the time away from sport is difficult, is painful, but you can still be used in a lot of different ways meaningfully. Yeah, so don't waste that time.
No,
Is what
I, I couldn't agree more. And just to finish up on that idea of just being like if you're moving in the right direction, like it doesn't have to be about OP, right? But like you're like, oh, I'm just gonna move in a positive direction, right? Like stuff just works out. I guess you would say it's faith. I would just say it's the universe, maybe. I don't know. Stuff just works out, right? Like it just does. But thank you so much for doing this. And anyone who's watching this, I hope you can take a lot away from it. But yeah, thank you so much, V.
and thanks for all your hard work. I mean,
Oh,
I come from a very type A industry, but I've never seen anyone so meticulous, so prepared. Everything has an answer, has a everything on the spreadsheet. Every email is so like I'm just so amazed by your efficiency, your dedication, and yeah, like no words, but yeah, excellent. Thank
oh,
you.
that's so nice to say, V. Yeah, thank you so much.